From the studios of TLC Talk Radio, it's TashaTalkz. I'm your girl, Tasha. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, catch us daily on TLCTalkRadio.com, 24/7 edutainment. Of course, TashaTalkz is all about relationship chat, and joining us again on the line is our friend, Pastor Yolanda Battle, affectionately known as Pastor Yo of Purpose Church. And she's, of course, also a graduate student at Roosevelt University's Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program. Welcome, Pastor Yo.
Hello. Happy Friday. And, today is just kind of a smorgasbord of topics. I just kind of said, this was on the fly production. What you want to talk about? And so Pastor Yo came up with, I was going to call you Dr. Yo. Apparently you need to go and get your doctorate. Right, that's right. Make it for real and make it official.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Pastor Yo came back with a lot of suggestions, and I thought that each of these singularly would make for robust conversation, but of course we can just kind of touch on them and maybe explore some of them later. And one of the things that hit right away, as is the purpose of TashaTalkz, was the first topic you came up with: cultivating relationships. And before we dive into that, I always stress to people that when I say TashaTalkz is a show about relationships, most people say, oh, great, because I got questions about why it's like this dating. Yes, that is included, but that is not the sole purpose of this show. Relationships are aplenty. There are different types of relationships, parental relationships, sibling relationships, friendships, frenemy-ships, if I can just take liberty with some vocabulary. The relationships you have at work, the relationship you have even with strangers, or what about this one, Pastor Yo, the relationship you have with yourself?
Ooh, yes.
Right? Because if that one's jacked up, then well.
Yes. Nothing will work.
Nothing. So what was on your mind when you kind of threw out that admittedly broad topic?
Well, I had saw on Facebook from the people who watch Insecure, and I'm not a person who have partaken in the show, but I was very interested in the dialogue that was taking place from, I presume, the main character and then her best friend.
Issa and Molly.
Yes, Issa and Molly. So
I don't watch it either, so.
Okay. But it had me to think about just overall in this season that we're in, being shelter in place, or the life that we've known before the pandemic definitely has changed and probably will forever be changed. And so it had me thinking, how are people dealing with the relationships that's in their circle, in their village? How are we able to, are people pulling away? Are people coming closer together? Are people have the opportunity to reevaluate the people that are in their circle? Being able to say, hey, you've always had a front seat in my life. Now I'm starting to think you need to have a seat in the balcony, or maybe not even have a seat at all.
Right,
and watch from the big screen that's outside. So it just had me thinking, just overall, a lot of the comments on social media and people describing being at home with their family 24/7, with the children, and homeschooling, and having to really see their children for maybe they weren't the little angels that they have always proclaimed them to be, because now they get to see how they are, or their spouse or their partner, or because of the distance, are you starting to see what did we have any foundation in our relationship? Has it been able to sustain because of the distance? Sure. And so that's why it's such a broad, very broad topic. I looked at a couple of my friend groups and making sure, being intentional, reaching out through text, and individuals are able to have Zoom parties now, so we can see each other, where we couldn't just drop over someone's house, but we can have technology, and so making sure we drop in, and just so we can put eyes on each other.
Absolutely.
But how are we as humans, right? Humans. Sure. What are we really thinking about? And then ultimately, what are we thinking about ourselves? You have a lot more time to get inside your head, and you don't have the hustle and bustle of the noise and the busyness that's kind of clogged our lives, our culture for some years. And now you're spending more time by yourself. What have you found out about yourself? Are we doing any introspection? And I just want to say, if you haven't, that's nothing bad about it either.
Right.
Because sometimes you just don't want to really look in the mirror and be like, you know what, that's really messed up.
Sometimes a lot of times it's very hard.
It is very hard. If you be honest, it is hard. Even if you find out some really good things about yourself, it is hard to actually sit down and have a real honest conversation and say, you know what, I don't like that I procrastinate. Or the way when I'm kind of reviewing myself, I speak in third person. So I don't like when I'm speaking, outside of myself. I don't like when you go off the deep end over something that could be minute. But then let's really look at it. Why do we blow things out of proportion? Is it something deeper? So let's get to the root of that. I talk to myself a lot because, being in the profession, in this program, we are taught to do a lot of self-reflection. And so how else can you help someone else if you don't know how to do it yourself? So a lot of it is I, me, my, what did I do? So I spend a lot of time talking to myself, looking at the things I've done in my past. And so I think just in this time, we should allow ourselves to have a conversation with ourselves, because at the very basis, your relationship with yourself should be intact. Because if you're looking at externally and you're looking at all your relationships are broken or something is fractured, something is wrong with them, it's really time to flip the mirror to look at yourself. What is going on with me that all these things happen? So, and again, like you said, it's not just in a romantic way, but your family, your coworkers, your associates, the strangers in your midst. How do you respond to the people that's in your world? I think it's even important to watch how people respond to what's going on right now. You have differences of opinion of what's happening right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. There's different schools of thought, and I respect you to have your differences. But then you look at, have my thought of them, of another person, shifted by their response.
Yeah.
You know, and so what does that say about me? You know, and I hope people understand that you can shift relationships. There's a season, just like there are seasons. There are times that individuals, they're seasonal in our life.
Sure.
And so if you come to a crossroad and realize, okay, I think we have given each other both what we needed for that time, then it's okay to say, you know, this is the time for us to
part
ways. Absolutely. And even in your family, you have to know that's okay too. Because just because you're related and connected by blood, you should not remain in a toxic relationship with family. Yes, you love them, but you love them from a distance. They don't have to have front seat. They don't have to consistently be in your space. As long as you have a clear understanding of what it is you expect, and your love language, how you respond to people and how they respond to you.
You know, I think that's the basis of, or the purpose. It's why you have to know who you are so that you can recognize toxic relationship and how it just doesn't feel right, how you become anxious when someone's around, when you always have to watch your words, even when you don't mean anything by them. And, you know, this person who's overly sensitive or who goes off the deep end if they feel wronged. It's the adage that says, put your own oxygen mask on first, because if you don't take care of you, then and allow yourself to be, you know, treated well, then you set yourself up for these kinds of situations, you know. And we teach people how to treat us. Pastor Yo, I always joke around. I have a friend, we dated when we were high school, so, you know, high school stupid stuff. And I found out, you know, that he was seeing somebody else, and we split, but we remained friends, which is a pattern for me. Since we're doing self-reflection, I'm typically friends. There's nobody. Is there anybody? Yeah. Anyway, but as we became friends and we got grown and he got married, and I didn't feel he was treating his wife well, but I ain't say nothing because it's not my business, right? But then when he asked, well, Tasha, what do you think? And my position was, you did that to her because you knew there were going to be no ramifications. You wouldn't have tried that with me or with the other girl you were dating. Like she showed you that she was going to be okay with it. Me, I'd have slashed your tires. I'm just playing. I don't believe in that. But don't do that. This is inappropriate. I get the feeling of want, but don't do that.
Right.
But my
you don't want to go to jail.
Yeah, I'm too pretty for jail, y'all. I'm not going. The point was, he knew who to try that with. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, that's just an example. People will pull what you allow. Derek Jackson is a relationship coach, and he always talks about guys doing a temperature check. He'll push and see how you respond. You know what I'm saying? If I joke around and call you out of your name and you be like, boy, don't be playing with me, and then you laugh it off, don't be surprised that when y'all get into an argument, he calls you out of your name. First time you call me out of my name, well, I just said don't be petty, so I'm going to just move on. But it's not a good idea, anybody.
Yes, absolutely.
So, no. But, you know, that's important. I think your second topic is directly related, because when you talk about cultivating relationships, when we talk about putting on our own oxygen mask first, how do people deal with battling loneliness, especially during a time like this? Like, some people are content. I'm content with my friends, without my friends. I live alone. I'm good. You know, I'm sorry, let me clarify. I also live with Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson.
Yes, please clarify.
So that we're clear.
Please clarify.
So one of my problems, but in all seriousness, I'm okay. Like I've never been a lonely person. I have a brother. He's passed, but he didn't live with me, so I learned how to entertain myself. If that makes sense. But what about people who that's not their natural space? How do they battle that kind of thing, especially in a time so isolating where you literally have to stay in place?
Yes. So one of the main things that I always like to clarify when talking about loneliness, that loneliness is a state of mind. And so for people who may be in a house full of people, they may say, well, I'm not alone, but I still have this feeling that no one understands me, no one hears me. And so experiencing that loneliness, and that can happen.
Sure.
So not to negate those feelings, but I really believe that to overcome loneliness, it goes back to knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing what pleases you, what you love, what brings you joy, what excites you, what brings joy to your eyes. Because then you can start with tasks or activities that will help start to alleviate the feeling of loneliness. Sure. And so first you have to get to the point of what caused the shift. And so we're talking about this pandemic where you're feeling lonely before the pandemic even started. And so if you were, then the pandemic is just an intensifier of that feeling.
Sure.
So I think people have this, they try to have this big, grandiose ideal or activity. Start with one thing or one person. Start with one. You put one foot in front of the other. So again, I love just being intentional. And so especially if you are a person who lived alone and now you are really struggling with loneliness,
sure.
Is there a person in your village that you trust? Even if it's not to 100%, but this is your go-to person. They've been on your mind. Reach out to them.
Sure.
This is the time we're going to have to be vulnerable. We can't sit back and just say, well, no one called me and no one reached out to me and no one came to visit me. We're not mind readers, and everyone is going through a pandemic. So we can't sit back and wait. We're going to have to say, hey, I miss you. Hey, I want to have this Zoom call. Or, hey, I'm going to get on FaceTime. Or watch this movie on Netflix with me. So if it's just that one person, think of that one activity that you really enjoy. I think I mentioned this before. I love to color. I have my own coloring books and my own crayons and my own coloring pencils. Not that it's a big deal. Not that it's a big deal now because my daughter is older, but yes, I make sure to keep my own stash, and that brings me joy. And so there are moments where I feel not necessarily lonely, but I may feel a little despondent or kind of maybe feel a little blue, because that's a real feeling.
Sure.
You're not really sad, but don't really know. You're not excited or exuberant or happy,
sure.
But you're not sad, you're not upset. So, that in-between feeling. And I'll pull out my a coloring book in color. And that will make me feel better. Also, I love to read. So reading helps me, could be a vehicle for a person not to overcome that state of mind of loneliness. Because when you read, especially when you're reading about wonderful or locations that you've never been to before, and you're learning about characters, you're connecting with people. Yes, they're in a book, they're not real, but you're connecting with characters that can make you feel that you're not alone.
Sure.
If you read an autobiography, so that's someone who's real. That's someone who's walking and living and breathing, if they're still, living now. And you can say, oh, well, they went through the same thing I went through.
Or something worse.
Similar, or something worse, and they still succeeded. So that's an avenue to help someone who may be going through loneliness. But I really feel like at the very core, we have to be vulnerable. We have to share. We have to tell someone.
Yeah.
We have to talk to someone. Even if it's one person, reach out to that one person and say, I need you. I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling lonely. I need some connection. And as the receiver of that text or that call or that email, we have to also be able to respond. And we have to be honest. I know we just keep building, but we have to be honest. If someone reaches out to you and you're not in a position to give what that person needs, we also have to be vulnerable and honest enough with ourselves and say, hey, I understand, but I'm feeling it too. So there's no need for both of us to be wallowing in despair. Let's call
Tasha
so-and-so. Right. And she'll make us laugh, or let's go, get on a call and see if they can talk about the funny videos that went out today or something like that. So it's a way we have to be intentional. Like, I can't stress it enough. We have to be intentional with reaching out and really cultivating that. And I think, and as adults who have children in our village, it's also important to make sure that we're connecting with the children, because they've never experienced this either.
That's right.
And this is not something that they even know how to respond to. They're used to going to school. They may tell you every day, all day, that they hate school. But I'm sure now that they've been home, a part of them miss going to school because the routine has been broken.
Yeah.
And so they can be feeling lonely, not being able to connect with their friends. And so it's encouraging to see parents who've been doing the Zoom play dates. And so set up the Zoom call so the young kids can talk to each other through Zoom. And even I've seen some primary teachers where they'll reserve the first few minutes of the lesson for the kids to talk to each other about whatever they and so before they dive into the lesson, because and that's important too, and that's so wonderful, that's so encouraging to see those things and hear of teachers doing that, because they understand as well, this child, their 7-year-old may be in a house full of adults and there's no one their age who will, they won't play with them, they won't watch Peppa Pig with them or whatever the program the kids are watching. And so now they can talk to their friend who they saw every day, and they can talk about what 7-year-olds talk about. So it's important as adults too, parents, to make sure we touch bases with our children and encouraging them to make sure that and kind of check their emotional tank. Yeah. How are they feeling? What's going on through their head?
Yeah, children are not, we're barely emotionally equipped to deal with this, right? We've had more life
Yes.
experience, but Jesus, these babies,
Yes.
they are completely stunned, and this is so abnormal.
Yes.
You know, technology has been helpful, but it is
Yeah.
not the same. I need a hug myself. And so you
Yes.
think about the child whose only affection came from school.
Yes.
Their friends told them, "Oh, you look so nice today." What if they are not only not getting it, but getting the complete opposite of it? God forbid, where they are. You know, school was the escape.
Yes.
And now they don't have it. School was the place where I can eat freely. And, you know, maybe I can't walk to the school to get my lunch. Maybe my mother, you know, can, or maybe it's just not, whatever the situation is. I think that's really, really important. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
What have you learned? So I'm going to ask you your question. What have you learned, or what are you learning about yourself during this time?
Oh, wow. But I've learned that things and activities and tasks and chores that I said that I did not have enough time to do was a total story. I just didn't want to do them.
Yeah.
So, and that was just very reassuring to me to say it out loud. I was like, I didn't want to do this in the first place. So, but also it had me, I'm reevaluating. Well, why did I say I needed to do this in the first place?
Right.
So getting down to the foundation of it. And so that was a wonderful thing for me to just admit it. I didn't want to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
All those excuses I had means nothing.
Means nothing. My little chore that I've always hated is mopping. I'll sweep all day. But God, I gotta come behind it and really clean the floor. I'm annoyed. And so I was fussing, and I've been fussing, and I've been ignoring the mopping. And then I went on and did it. It didn't even take me that long, and I just started laughing. Like I just I get it.
Yes.
I think
I've also
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying I've also learned that I really value quiet time.
That's good.
And I really value the quiet time. And I've always thought that I liked quiet time because I grew up as, I'm an only child, so it's just me, and it was just me and my mom. And there were times where, the house can be quiet because either we were both reading or I would have the radio on and she was reading. So when I was younger, and now that it's myself and my youngest daughter and then my husband. And so there are moments when all of us are together. The kitchen is our meeting place. We eat in there. We play our board games in there.
Nice.
We chit chat and laugh. We listen to music in there because we have a Alexa in the kitchen. So the kitchen is our hub. That's really where we kind of all come together in the kitchen. But when she's in her room and I'll come into the living room and my husband goes into the bedroom, I like when it's the quiet. I value the quiet. So I can sit in the living room and not have the TV on, not have the radio on, and I'm reading, whether it's for school or reading a novel on my Kindle. I really value the quiet, and it's nothing wrong with quiet because you really get to hear whatever you call your higher power. But that's my time where I hear God, and feel God,
and learn more about your relationship, your spiritual relationship, because that's part of you. That goes back to what we said earlier, knowing who you are. You pour into yourself. You allow God to pour into you when you're quiet. We are always on the go. I think what I've learned is that sometimes God allows things to happen. So I want everybody to know I'm not saying God threw the coronavirus at us, so that we're clear.
Right.
But God allows things to happen to slow us down,
Yes.
Much like you were saying, the things that I wanted to accomplish, the revamping I wanted to do, whether it was for the station or around the house or the cleaning or just the washing the walls, whatever that looked like, I've had the time to do it, and I can sit and just be okay.
Yeah.
You know,
yes.
I'm learning that every task doesn't have to happen right now. I'm one of those. I couldn't go to sleep if the dishes were in the sink and I didn't take care. You know, I could come in, you know, we go dancing or something. I come in late at night. I gotta wash these dishes. Now it's 2 a.m. Why do I have to wash these dishes? Particularly since I live by myself. Who's gonna be mad? Me?
Right.
But you know, I'm learning how to slow down.
That is so key right there. I think that right there, that everything does not have to be done right now.
Right.
Because we were in this moving and we going to the next event and participating in this event, and we gotta go.
Yeah.
And in this season, it's like we don't have to we can say no. Like my mother, I love this thing from my mom. She told me this when I was younger. Didn't appreciate this until I became older and an adult. No is a complete sentence.
Absolutely. And that is a good spot to end on, because it's really important that we take this time to get to be in tune with ourselves. So I guess next week we'll hit the rest of these topics, because we had a lot. As we told you, robust conversation could come from all of these topics. This episode of Tasha Talks was produced by Yolanda Simmons Battle. Don't forget to tune in to TLCTalkRadio.com to catch us every day. Follow us on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. This has been TLC Talk Radio's Tasha Talks. I'm your girl, Tasha, and I will catch you next week.